It wasn't a public ceremony. It wasn't a televised transfer. It was a private moment near the crown's most guarded symbols, when Catherine stepped forward and stopped King Charles before a single handover could be made final. No speeches, no smiles, just a frozen second where the future Queen Consort halted the king himself. And the shock isn't that Charles planned to hand the crown jewels collection to Camilla, it's what Catherine believed would happen the moment Camilla touched them. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Because in that one pause, something far bigger than etiquette cracked open. The monarchy is built on control of image, of language, of timing. And yet Catherine didn't negotiate through intermediaries. She didn't wait for a private briefing or a safer hour. She placed herself between the king and the crown's most guarded symbols, turning a quiet transfer into a confrontation with history itself. Not loud, not theatrical, just firm enough to make everyone in the room feel the same thought at the same time. This is not a family disagreement, this is a battle over legitimacy. The stop moment wasn't emotional, it was deliberate. Catherine interrupted an imminent handover with the kind of calm that scares people more than anger quiet, firm, unmistakably defiant. The kind of defiance that isn't meant to win an argument, but meant to prevent an irreversible outcome. Because the crown jewels aren't accessories. They are national symbols. They are dynastic legitimacy made physical. They are the heartbeat of continuity, the proof that the crown is bigger than any individual. And Catherine behaved like someone who understood that one wrong gesture, one wrong set of hands, could reshape the story the monarchy tells the world. That's why Camilla becomes the flashpoint, not because she's simply a person, but because she carries a narrative that has always been contested. In royal life, acceptance is not granted by affection, it is granted by symbols, and the jewels are the most unforgiving symbols of all. If Camilla touches them in the wrong context, at the wrong time, with the wrong implications, it doesn't look like honoring a queen consort. It looks like rewriting the hierarchy. It looks like a victory lap over old wounds that never fully healed. It looks like a claim of authority that some will never accept no matter how much the palace insists they must. The room felt it instantly. Staff and courtiers froze, because the hierarchy became visible in seconds. When a senior royal intervenes directly, no one knows where to put their eyes. Every glance becomes evidence. Every pause becomes meaning. Every breath becomes a choice. And in that silence, you could sense something even more dangerous than conflict. Recognition. Recognition that Catherine wasn't acting on impulse. Recognition that she knew exactly what was at stake. Recognition that she believed the king was about to cross a line that could not be uncrossed. Then came the whispered line, barely more than air, but heavy enough to change the room's gravity. This isn't yours to give. It wasn't said like an insult. It was said like a verdict. A reminder that the crown jewels don't belong to a man, even if he wears the crown. They belong to the institution, to the story of continuity, to the nation that watches and judges. And if Catherine felt forced to say it, that suggests she believed Charles wasn't simply honoring Camilla, he was testing how far he could move something sacred before anyone stopped him. And Charles, in that moment, didn't look embarrassed. He looked resolute. That's what made it chilling. The king carried the stillness of someone who believes he is doing something necessary, even if it hurts. And Catherine, unshakable, composed, unyielding, looked like someone preventing a catastrophe, not protesting a preference. The contrast between them was brutal. One side pushing forward with the weight of authority, the other side refusing with the weight of consequence. A quiet collision between legacy and survival. Because Catherine's move wasn't just a refusal. It was a declaration that she was willing to absorb the backlash if it meant protecting the monarchy's future from a symbolic mistake that would echo for decades. It was the kind of moment that turns whispers into factions, those who believe the king must be obeyed no matter what. and those who believe the crown must be protected even from the king himself. And once that line is drawn inside a palace room, it never truly disappears. It just waits for the next pressure point to ignite it again. But once you accept Catherine would never block the king without a deeper reason, you're forced to ask what kind of private pressure was driving Charles to make a transfer that could rewrite royal history. To the public, it sounds like a family matter, King Charles ensuring Camilla is properly honoured. But inside the palace, the crown jewels aren't his to hand over like a gift. They are the monarchy's spine, symbolism, continuity, legitimacy. So when Charles moves to place a collection into Camilla's hands, the court doesn't hear romance, they hear risk. And when Catherine stops it, she isn't being emotional, she's protecting the crown from an irreversible precedent. Because the jewels don't function like personal property, they function like proof. Proof that the monarchy is more than feelings. Proof that tradition isn't something you reshape to soothe a momentary tension. Proof that the institution can survive individuals. That's why the very idea of a handover sends a chill through the system. It's not the sparkle that matters. It's what the sparkle represents: continuity, authority, legitimacy. And legitimacy isn't a thing you can polish back to life once it's scratched. It's either believed or it isn't. This is where the constitutional and ceremonial danger creeps in, quiet but deadly. Even an attempted transfer implies a line is being tested. It suggests the crown is being treated like a family wardrobe instead of a national symbol. It invites the world to wonder whether the monarchy is still guided by rules or whether it's being guided by private desire. And once those questions start, they don't stop. They multiply. They spread. They become a storm that every royal appearance, every silence, every gesture has to fight against. Precedent is the true fear here. Because once the rules bend, they bend again. Today it's a collection, tomorrow it's access, influence, or symbolic control dressed up as ceremony. The palace understands that the public doesn't analyze these moments like lawyers. They feel them like betrayal. They sense when something sacred is being moved too casually. And even if the palace insists nothing changed, perception will insist otherwise. In the monarchy, perception is not a side effect. It's oxygen, and oxygen can turn into fire. That's why Catherine's calculation isn't personal, it's strategic. She is preventing a symbolic takeover that could taint the monarchy's image in a way no apology can reverse. Because if Camilla becomes visually, ceremonially, emotionally linked to a crown jewels collection through a handover narrative, it doesn't just honor her, it re-centers the story. It makes her the focal point of tradition itself. It forces the public to accept a version of history they may not be ready to accept. And forced acceptance always produces backlash. Sometimes immediate, sometimes delayed, but always inevitable. And the optics are explosive. The moment the public suspects the crown is being rebranded, outrage doesn't stay contained to tabloids. It seeps into politics, into public trust, into the broader question of what the monarchy even is anymore. People start asking if tradition is being weaponized to reward loyalty, settle scores, or cement status. They start reading every jewel, every photograph, every ceremonial move as a message. And once that begins, the palace loses control of the narrative. It becomes reactive, defensive, hunted by its own symbolism, which leads to the detail that makes everything feel colder: timing. Why now? Why move quickly? Why create a moment that could have been handled with softer language, slower steps, safer framing? Timing suggests a hidden clock, a countdown, the kind of urgency that appears when someone wants something secured before another truth surfaces. Because if you have to do it now, it's usually because later is too risky. Later brings questions. Later brings leaks. Later brings people who might say no. And Catherine's intervention makes it feel like she recognized that clock: the urgency in Charles's posture, the speed in the decision, the sense that something was being pushed through while the palace still had enough darkness to hide it. So the jewels become more than objects. They become a battlefield where power disguises itself as ceremony, and tradition is used like a weapon. The entire court can feel it. This isn't merely about honoring Camilla, it's about anchoring her to the crown so tightly that opposing it becomes treasonous in the public mind. And Catherine's refusal threatens that plan, which is why it lands like a shockwave. Because it's not a princess refusing a preference. It's a future queen refusing a precedent. And if this wasn't a celebration but a strategic move, the next question becomes darker. What was Charles trying to secure or silence by putting Camilla at the center of the jewels? Camilla has never just been a person in this story, she's been a symbol. For some, she represents survival and loyalty. For others, she represents the wound that never closed. That's why the idea of her receiving a crown jewels collection is explosive. It's not about diamonds, it's about rewriting who the monarchy honors. And if Catherine stepped in to stop it, she may have been stopping something bigger than a transfer. She may have been stopping a declaration of dominance. Because the monarchy doesn't fight wars with speeches anymore. It fights them with symbols, quiet, polished, seemingly harmless symbols that carry centuries of meaning. And Camilla is the sharpest symbol of all, precisely because she divides people without even trying. Her public acceptance remains contested in royal mythology, not through official rules, but through memory, emotion, and the stories people refuse to let go of. That's what makes the jewels dangerous. Hand them over, and you don't just honor Camilla. You stamp a narrative onto history and dare the world to argue with it. This is the unfinished war the palace never admits exists. Old loyalties, old resentments, old grief kept behind smiles until a moment like this forces them to surface. Some see Camilla as the woman who endured, the partner who stayed, the figure who stabilized Charles in his hardest years. Others see her as a reminder of an era the public still talks about in whispers and anger. And when those two realities collide with something as sacred as the crown jewels, the palace doesn't get a neutral outcome. It gets a rupture. That's why the jewels become a public stamp of legitimacy, a forced acceptance, a signal that says, this is the story now, and anyone who resists it is resisting the crown itself. The symbolism is almost surgical. Take an object that represents continuity, place it into hands that still generate controversy, and watch the public either submit or revolt. And the palace would call it duty and honor and proper respect. But Catherine's intervention makes it feel like something else. A power move disguised as ceremony. A declaration that Camilla's status isn't just acknowledged, it's untouchable. And that's where Catherine's inner conflict becomes unbearable. Because she isn't just a bystander watching a tradition unfold. She's a future queen. And she understands how symbols work. She knows the crown survives when the public believes it belongs to something bigger than any individual. She also knows there are lines you don't cross if you want the institution to remain stable. So her refusal is not petty. It's protective. It's a refusal to let the monarchy's most powerful symbols become fuel for an argument the palace can't control once it starts. But the emotional tension is real, because Catherine isn't only protecting the crown, she's protecting her family's future inside it. She wasn't trained to fight in public. She was trained to endure, smile through storms, and absorb private pain without flinching. So when she stops the king, it signals something rare: desperation. A moment where she decides the cost of silence is worse than the cost of conflict. Because she isn't just stopping a handover, she's stopping a chain reaction that could redefine her role, her marriage, and the monarchy she's sworn to protect. Her calculation is ruthless. Stop it now or lose control forever. Because once the image exists, once the symbolism is sealed, no private explanation will undo what the public feels. And the fear underneath it isn't just about protocol. It's about her children's future, the institution they will inherit, and the stability they will be forced to carry. Catherine understands that one symbolic takeover could taint the monarchy's image for years, turning every future appearance into a referendum on legitimacy. Charles's response only deepens the dread: pride, firmness, and a hint of heartbreak. like he believes he is doing the right thing for reasons no one else is allowed to question. And in that moment, the hierarchy flips in a way that makes everyone uneasy. Catherine behaves like a guardian of continuity, as if she's protecting the crown not from outsiders, but from the king's own decision. Staff reactions turn to panic, because this is a crack the public can feel even without seeing it. And the palace knows once cracks appear, the press starts listening for fractures. Then comes the implied ultimatum that hangs in the air without being spoken. Either Charles pauses, or the conflict escalates quietly. Because in royal life, the most dangerous fights are never the loud ones. They're the fights that happen behind closed doors, in whispers, in withheld approvals, in sudden changes of access and influence. And if the jewels were meant to seal Camilla's authority, Catherine's refusal wasn't rebellion, it was a warning that the monarchy's future can't be built on forced acceptance. But the most chilling part isn't Catherine's defiance, it's what it implies, that Charles was ready to do this fast, before anyone could stop him. Royal power doesn't move with public announcements, it moves with quiet signatures and invisible consent. That's why this moment reeks of something already in motion. If Charles was prepared to hand a crown jewels collection to Camilla, there was likely a private paper trail, briefings, legal opinions, discreet approvals. And if Catherine stopped it at the last second, it suggests she discovered the plan too late, or she uncovered who was pushing it through behind her back. Because nothing this delicate is ever spontaneous inside a palace. There is always an approval chain. Gatekeepers who decide what the king hears first, what gets softened, what gets rushed, and what gets buried under polite language. And the most unsettling detail isn't that paperwork exists, it's the timing. The rushed feeling around it. The sense that this wasn't being prepared carefully for tradition, but pushed quickly to beat scrutiny. Speed, in royal life, isn't efficiency. Speed is fear. Speed means someone believes that if the wrong person has time to ask questions, the entire plan collapses. That's why secrecy becomes its own kind of fingerprint. Who benefits from secrecy? Always the person who can't survive daylight. If this handover was harmless, it could have been handled slowly, framed gently, placed inside familiar ceremony. But if it needed to happen fast, quietly, with minimal witnesses, that suggests there was something fragile at its core, something that could be stopped, challenged, or reinterpreted if Catherine, William, advisors, or even the wider household had time to intervene. And the faster it happens, the harder it is to reverse. Once the symbol is transferred, the story writes itself, and the palace becomes trapped inside it. Catherine's suspicion in that moment doesn't have to be spoken to be real. When a future queen steps in against a king, it usually means she believes someone is steering him politically or emotionally, not with blatant coercion, but with something more effective, carefully chosen words and selective truths. A private advisor framing the handover as necessary. A loyal voice insisting it's time. A quiet promise that this will stabilize the institution, when in fact it could destabilize everything. Catherine isn't just reacting to Camilla. She's reacting to the possibility that Charles is being guided into a decision that serves someone else's agenda while wearing the mask of tradition. And then comes the most poisonous weapon in any royal power struggle: misinformation. Different royals being fed different versions of truth. Charles told it's routine. Camilla told it's rightful. Catherine told it's already decided. Staff told it's just procedure. That's how you create momentum without consent. People move forward because they believe resistance is pointless, because they assume someone else has already approved. And when Catherine blocks the action, the illusion shatters. Suddenly everyone realizes they've been carried forward by narrative, not agreement. That's when the palace does what it always does when reality becomes dangerous. It starts editing the story in real time. The monarchy can survive scandal. What it can't survive is a scandal it doesn't control. Within minutes, the confrontation wasn't treated like family tension, it was treated like a narrative emergency. Calls were placed. Language was chosen with surgical care. Because if the public hears Catherine stopped Charles from handing jewels to Camilla, they don't think private disagreement. They think cover-up. And the palace knows once that word lands, it never truly leaves. So the misunderstanding cover story appears ceremony timing, storage protocols, routine review, anything that makes it sound boring instead of explosive. And the speed reveals fear. Rapid spin means high stakes. You can almost feel the blame being assigned behind closed doors. Who let Catherine find out? Who let Charles proceed? Who failed to manage the sequence? Who allowed two versions of truth to collide in the same room? Because when the palace panics, it doesn't only protect the crown. It sacrifices whoever it must to protect the crown's image. Meanwhile, the media risk grows with every passing minute. One staff whisper, one overheard phrase, one detail leaked to the wrong person, and the story becomes global outrage not because of gemstones, but because of what gemstones represent. Catherine's dilemma sharpens into a blade: deny it and look weak, or insist and ignite war. Charles's silence becomes strategy, because explaining confirms there's something to explain. And in that silence, the public imagination fills the gap with the worst possibility every time. And once the palace starts calling it a misunderstanding, you realize this isn't just a disagreement, it's a crisis being managed before it becomes a scandal. But just when the palace thought it could contain it, one detail refused to disappear, because it suggested Charles wasn't acting out of honor, he was acting under pressure. Here's what makes this story terrifying. Kings don't rush into symbolic transfers unless something is squeezing them from the inside. Charles knows legacy, he knows history, he knows the cost of scandal, and yet he was willing to move fast. That suggests he wasn't simply honoring Camilla. He was trying to solve something, repay something, prevent something. And if Camilla was the recipient, the bargain may have been personal enough to haunt him. Because beneath the polished language of duty and proper respect, there's a human truth the palace can't fully hide. Charles is a man torn between love, guilt, and institutional survival. The debt theory hangs over everything like an unspoken confession. The idea that Charles believes he owes Camilla public legitimacy, not just affection in private, but protection in history, and symbols are the strongest protection of all. When you attach someone to the jewels, you attach them to continuity. You make the world swallow a narrative it might still resist. You don't just honor them, you seal them into the story the crown tells forever. But guilt is never clean. It comes with regret, and regret makes people reckless. The regret theory is the one that feels almost tragic, the sense that Charles is trying to correct past wounds through symbolism, wounds the public still argues about, wounds the family has never fully healed. He may believe that if he can finally finish the story with a decisive gesture, he can quiet the noise, close the chapter, and protect Camilla from being eternally defined by conflict. Yet that same gesture threatens to reopen everything, because the world doesn't read it as closure. It reads it as conquest. And that's the cruel paradox. What Charles thinks will heal, Catherine believes will ignite. Then comes the darkest angle, one the palace would never admit, but everyone inside would recognize instantly. The bargain theory. A private deal to keep something quiet. Because institutions don't always survive through honesty, they survive through containment. If there is a truth hovering behind the jewels, something fragile, something explosive, then transferring symbols becomes a currency. A way to buy loyalty. A way to settle a dispute without words. A way to ensure the wrong story doesn't leak at the wrong time. And in that kind of deal, it's not Camilla being honored. It's Camilla being positioned as the solution to a problem the palace fears. That's why Catherine's fear becomes so sharp, it almost feels prophetic. Compassion used as leverage becomes a national crisis. If Charles can be steered by guilt or love into a move this risky, then the crown is vulnerable to emotional manipulation from within. Catherine isn't just stopping a transfer, she's stopping an example. Because once the palace learns it can shift sacred symbols by pressing the right emotional button, no boundary stays sacred for long. The monarchy starts to operate like a family under siege instead of an institution under control. And the timing is what makes it all feel like a countdown. The clock. Someone wants this done before a truth breaks, before a leak, before a revelation that would make the handover look less like honor and more like panic. That urgency isn't sentimental, it's tactical. Because if the story changes tomorrow, the palace needs the symbol secured today. That's how cover stories are built. Set the image first, then let the explanations chase it. And Catherine's intervention suggests she sensed that strategy in real time. Here's the part the palace will never confirm, but everyone inside will understand. Catherine didn't stop Charles to embarrass him. She stopped him because she believed the jewels handover would detonate something the monarchy couldn't survive. Because when a future queen blocks the king, it usually means one of two things. The monarch is being misled, or the monarch is about to cross a line that can't be uncrossed. And Camilla, whether she knew it or not, was standing at the center of that blast. This is containment at its most brutal. Catherine acts to stop a private crisis infecting the monarchy's core, and that implies she saw something others didn't want her to see. A secret arrangement tied to Camilla and the jewels. A fragile compromise that only holds if the symbols stay exactly where they are, under exactly the right narrative. Because once the jewels move, the palace loses the ability to claim innocence. It loses the ability to say nothing changed. The act itself becomes the story, and the story becomes a weapon. The emotional cost of that realization is devastating. Catherine learns the harsh truth that love doesn't equal safety inside the institution, only stability does. Only control does. And that forces her into a role nobody wants, yet history demands, choosing continuity over comfort, not because she lacks empathy, but because the crown treats people as pieces, and sometimes the only way to prevent collapse is to move a piece even when it breaks a heart. Catherine's calm becomes her armor. Her refusal becomes her duty. And in that moment, duty stops being poetic. It becomes ruthless. And then the cliffhanger promise hangs in the air like a blade. If Charles pushes, Catherine will force truth into daylight. Because sometimes the only way to stop a dangerous decision is to threaten exposure, the one thing the palace fears more than conflict. And that threat doesn't sound like revenge. It sounds like a final safeguard. If you insist on crossing this line, you will not do it in darkness. The final twist is the one nobody sees except those closest to the king. Charles isn't defeated, he's cornered. Not only by Catherine, but by the pressure that drove him to move fast in the first place. And that's the most unsettling possibility of all. Someone else may be pulling strings, using timing and emotion like tools, forcing the king and the future queen onto a collision course that benefits a hidden agenda. Because if Catherine really is prepared to drag the truth into daylight, then this isn't the end, it's the beginning of a royal civil war fought with whispers, access and secrets. And the crown jewels are only the first battlefield. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.